Okay, hello everyone. We're live. How you doing today? So lovely.
Hey, yeah, I was saying, I wonder what we're going to talk about today.
We all know.
Yeah.
But I have one off-topic subject. Here's the off-topic subject. So Tony Romo retired. I guess he's going to be a commentator at CBS. And again, we get into this conversation, and this conversation works for any sport, and someday it might work for Henrik Lundqvist. If you're a really good player, like if you look at Romo's numbers, he's got 34,000 yards, way more touchdowns than interceptions. I can't imagine how many comeback victories he has. Like, I haven't even looked it up. He was a really good quarterback.
Yeah.
And people just love just kicking him around because it's the Cowboys, and he's an oh shucks kind of good guy, and they just love to rip him. But at the end of the day, this guy's a really good quarterback that most of the teams in the league would love to have, and fans just kill him. And I just think it's wrong. It's the same. It's the same argument as anybody in the NHL who's ever had a long career who didn't win a Stanley Cup. It doesn't make them any less of a great athlete.
Yeah, I also think that that sort of aw shucks personality that he has, I'm not sure how it's going to translate to being a broadcaster, being a commentator. I mean, I would assume, I think it's CBS that's supposedly interested in signing him, and I've heard as much that he's going to be groomed as like the eventual replacement for a guy like Phil Simms. That's a lot of pressure on a guy who I've never heard broadcast before. I mean,
I've heard him interviewed.
Interview wise,
well, he's a good interview. Here's the thing. Did we think Troy Aikman would be as great as he is? He was an all shucks guy. He's great.
Well, there's some people who don't think so, but not
really?
me.
I think he's really good.
Yeah.
All shucks. All right, maybe we should start.
Yep. That's just my little rant.
No, I like the all shucks term. It's pretty funny. Kind of reminds me of, like, I was watching old Cheers, of like Woody Harrelson, of old Cheers, which is so funny. And now, because you watch, what was the he's in that he's in that new movie.
He's in a lot of movies. I mean,
he's in that movie now where he's like fighting against robots and killing. What is it like? Really?
Oh, I know what you're talking. You mean Transformers?
No, maybe I don't think it's the Transformers. It's like it really looks like brutally violent. It's just funny because we had just watched Cheers and then we had turned it off and we were watching the hockey game.
He was in Natural Born Killers.
I know, my kids are like, that's Woody, and it's like this guy like with blood, and it's like it's unbelievable, like the transformation from that character to what he's done in movies.
I mean, he's bald and he looks and he looks mean. So yeah, it's a big departure from Woody.
Yeah, no, it's so funny, but I'll always be Woody for I don't know. That was just such a classic character.
It was. He'll be remembered for that.
Yeah, oh, for sure. For sure. All right, let's get going here. Today is the 4th. Okay, ready? Hello, Hockey World. It's Tuesday, April 4th, 2017.
I'm Michael Agello.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
And I am Eklund, and you're watching the HockeyBuzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. This is not opening day for the Buzzcast, but Russ was at opening day yesterday in New York.
I was. It was fun. Opening day, here's the funny thing. Yeah. In any other sport, they don't term it opening day. And it's a nice thing for baseball because your team is 0-0. Your hope is there.
Yeah.
There's a great atmosphere. Fans are talking about it. It gets you thinking about nothing else in the world. So in that regard, opening day is really special.
Yeah, and then when you lose, your fan base thinks you're going to go 0-162.
Of course.
So.
Baseball is it to me, it represents the beginning of summer, like, and that's kind of
exactly, and it's that too.
Yes.
It really feels like, okay, I'm going to be at the shore in a few weeks and stuff like that. It's fun.
You'll be in short traffic. Yep.
Yeah, all that stuff. So now we just have 3 games to talk about last night before we get into this other discussion that we're going to get into here. But the Maple Leafs did break their jinx last night against the Sabres. They came out with a really strong first period at least, and then held on a little bit.
Not really. A strong 43 seconds because there were multiple brain cramps by the Sabres defense last night, and in the span of 43 seconds, Komarov, Austin Matthews, and Van Riemsdyk off a face-off scored. It's 3-0 before half the people sat down at the KeyBank Center. And the thing that the final score was 4-2, but the thing that people miss, the Sabres had 8 shots on goal through 2 periods. It was that one-sided and that bad. I mean,
Rich Henry, I was listening to it, and Rich Henry was aggravated. Like, it was just he couldn't say the goals quick enough, and it was like you could tell it was frustrating him. And to listen to it, just as a listener, without being able to see anything, it made you think, boy, the Sabres didn't even show up. Like, they didn't even try.
Yeah, and the one goal. I mean, Leonard was pulled after 5 shots, 3 goals and 5 shots. The one goal that the Sabres did score was a shorthanded goal where Ryan O'Reilly walks around Jake Gardner, and scores.
Well, he got him to cough it up, right? Is that what happened?
What's that?
O'Reilly got him to cough it up, right? And
No. It was a shorthanded one-on-one, and he blew right by him.
Okay.
But other than that, I mean, there really wasn't a lot of Sabres offense, a lot of Sabres, sort of fight back. Actually, I think they seem to have lost their cool a little bit. Vander Kane slashed Jake Gardner, got a retaliatory penalty. Jack Eichel splattered Mitch Marner along the boards. Ristolainen. Although Nazem Kadri, if you read lips, you got an education on swear words because he said something to Ristolainen, and that started a little bit of a kerfuffle. So it dragged at times, but the Leafs did what they needed to do, and you know that they're having a good year when they win 2 of 3 games in Buffalo, because that never happened.
Now, here's the annoying thing about a Sabres broadcast on the radio: the intro and outro music coming back to the show is the same music you used to hear on Wonderama when they were playing a game, like when they were having like one of those 3-minute games and they had to put some sort of music in the back. What is up with that, Mike?
They're one of the few broadcasts that does simulcast. That's the TV broadcast. So they
it's awful. The music is awful.
That's MSG. That's MSG
it's
doing
almost like the Benny Hill song, but it's worse.
Yeah, I mean, but Generette is on radio and television, so he does basically a radio play-by-play on TV, which everybody loves because they love Generette. He's a great announcer. So
yeah, he's a legend. But what's Wonderama?
Wonderama, Bob McAllister. It was the great TV game show for kids. It used to be on WNEW in New York, Channel 11, and it ran for a million years. Now, the guy who was preceded him, guy before him, Sandy Beckert. That was before me. My brother's 3 years older, so he used to watch Sandy Beckert on that show. And Sandy Beckert is known for being on Tennessee Tuxedo. He was one of the voices on that.
Oh my God.
Oh, yeah. We've lost everyone now.
We just went really old really quick.
Any idea what we're talking about now?
Yeah. Anyway.
Oh, man. But, all right. So, yes. The Maple Leafs do pull off the win. It gives them 1 more point, because I had them losing in overtime. So in my thing,
can you find the video of us talking about what happens when the Leafs get good in maybe 2 years? Like if it happens, we did talk about this.
Yes, we did. And so now the Leafs are going to be kind of firmly in the wild card spot for me.
Well,
actually, no, they'll be in 3rd place. I'm sorry. Yeah,
right now they're in 2nd.
Right now they're in 2nd. I still think Ottawa will finish ahead of them. But
not based on the way Ottawa has played lately, and how they played last night.
They lost last night to Detroit, but that was predicted or projected. I think it will be interesting to see how Ottawa plays from here on out, because they have been hurt. Granted, they've got a lot of injuries, but they do have, their schedule is very favorable, even for an injured team. And whether or not that might be a great thing for Detroit. I mean, that might be a great thing for Toronto. I mean, Ottawa, remember last time they made the playoffs, sort of had this incredible run to make the playoffs at the end of the year.
Yeah, well,
that was the Andrew Hammond run. Yeah,
right. So this is the exact opposite, where they're sort of falling apart towards the end of the year, but.
And then fell flat in their face when they got in the playoffs. But the problem is that right now, not only the guys that we mentioned yesterday, CC, Zach Smith, and Mathot. I mean, Carlson came back last night and played really well and played over 30 minutes like he normally does. But Bobby Ryan is not scoring, and right now there's a lot of things that are not going right with Ottawa. And maybe when the playoffs get there, they all of a sudden turn it around. But and I wrote about this yesterday, if Toronto has an opponent that they could choose to face, I think they wouldn't complain about playing Ottawa. The guy, I think, and I'm in the minority here, I want them to play the Boston Bruins. I want the cherry on top of the sundae this year is slaying the dragon of 2013, is exorcising the demons of that Game 7. And if this team can beat the Bruins, then forget 2013 and forget the 4-1 collapse.
Well, if this team can beat the Bruins, and then they have to play, I guess it would be the Rangers.
Rangers or Canadians.
Yeah. It'd be the Rangers.
It'll be the Canadians. But anyhow.
You think the Canadians will beat the Rangers?
Yes. We'll talk about that at another time, but yes.
We'll talk about that another time. But
let's get the first round first. So right now and Toronto won't say this because they're just concerned about getting in the playoffs. Right now they're concerned about not having to play the team that they're playing tonight, the Washington Capitals, because the Washington Capitals, in spite of their reputation of being choke artists in the playoffs, are loaded for bear.
Oh yeah, no, the Capitals are a friggin' good team. I mean, you don't forget about choking. Forget about
right. They're a good team. You can't.
I mean, they only lost last year because they ran into the Pittsburgh Penguins. I don't think the people who say the Capitals choked last year, the Penguins were just on such a roll that it didn't matter. Like they didn't choke last year. I mean, the Capitals, if they choked, that would have meant losing to the Flyers in the first round. They didn't do that. They got past the Flyers, and even though they didn't play their best hockey, they got past the Flyers. I might add. But they did manage to get past the Flyers. So tonight, of course, and then we'll move on to the Olympics. Tonight we have a bunch of good games here. Tampa-Boston, like we talked about before, is a really huge game. This is on NBCSN, so good on NBCSN for putting the right game on tonight.
And from what I understand, Stamkos
is not playing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is telling, because if you're going to play him, this is what, if I was Tampa though, I mean, we've lived through this before. We talked a little bit about this yesterday, Russ, when you weren't here. I've lived through this before where, a star like that comes back at the very end of something. Like, so if the Lightning are going to make it, they're going to make it on a run, and they are on a run right now. They're doing pretty well. And if I'm that team right now, I just tell Stamkos, listen, hang out for the play. If we make the playoffs, you're in. If not, let this team go down on its own or go up on its own, because this is, to me, it feels like you can bring a guy in, and I bring back, I always talk about this, Eric Lindros, against the New Jersey Devils. That Flyers team was playing so well. They played, they were up on the Devils in that series. They bring Lindros back, and players can't help but let down because your star's back in the game, and you start looking at him. You start watching him again, waiting for Lindros to do things. Things like that happen. Right now, the Lightning are on a roll. They're playing really well, and I think they're in the playoffs as long as they don't mess up. I really think they're going to make the playoffs. So
I agree with you. I think you keep it status quo. It's the same as the Def Leppard drummer losing his arm. Once you learn how to play with the other arm, you might as well just let it keep going.
It's a great analogy, and
I think so.
No, it is.
See,
I really just think that there's no point. I mean, Stamkos obviously isn't 100%, or else he'd be back. So don't rush him back. Bring him back for the playoffs if you want to. Then, because once you make the playoffs, then everything changes. The whole feel of the season begins again, right? It really does. The players, the momentum of the psyche of a player, the season literally does start over when the playoffs start.
I'm not saying rush him back, but I'm sorry. If you have a weapon there, and that's the difference between – I mean, he can provide a goal that could be the difference between you making and missing the playoffs. He's going to be in there. I'm not saying put him in the top 6. I mean, hey, he played, third, fourth line in Game 7 against Pittsburgh? They didn't let down against Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh was just the better team, and he had a couple chances in that game. So if he's able – if you have him being able to put that one-timer on the power play, you put him in. You don't sit him. You put him in.
I don't know, Mike. He does require a certain amount of shots. It's not like Wayne Gretzky where he's going to make a lot of others better. He's a different kind of player. I think keeping him out is okay. I do.
This is who you're playing. You're playing Boston, then you're playing Toronto, then you're playing Montreal, then you're ending with Buffalo. Right. This is direct. So when you're looking at those teams, this Tampa Bay Lightning team is talented enough to win those 4 games without Steven Stamkos.
You know what, though? Here's the thing. If I think I need that last game, I'll put Stamkos in against Buffalo. I will.
If you're going to put him in to just play on the power play or something like that, that's what I would think about doing. 4th line, power play time, okay. Shoot out, maybe, whatever, steal the stuff that you need from Stamkos. But I don't think they should mess with their lines right now. Their lines are really clicking.
Well, I mean, there's a history with Stamkos in Boston. That's the building that he broke his leg in.
Right.
So and that's a big aggressive team. Although they've sort of gone more towards speed and pressing their offensive attack under Cassidy. But honestly, Toronto is not a big, tough, grinding team. It's going to be a speed game. That's going to be their season because I mean, if Toronto loses tonight to Washington, Tampa wins, they're 3 points behind them. They're still able to be caught. I mean, more importantly, Tampa needs the 2 points. If it's Thursday and it's Toronto, I'm putting Stamkos in.
I got something to bring up from last night's game, the Detroit game. I heard a sentiment today, which I think there's probably some people that had the sentiment. Detroit beats Ottawa in the shootout. Evgeny Svechnikov wins the game. It's his first NHL game. And people act like, well, he didn't earn it. He just came up and he's beating a team that's in the playoffs like Ottawa. And how could you how could the NHL use it? And I'm thinking, he has worked his ass off in the AHL. Yeah. This guy, I spoke to him 2 summers ago at an event, and I'm telling you, he is dedicated. He's not as good a player as his brother Andre, who could be the first overall pick in 2018, but he's going to be a decent player. And he has worked his tail off. And if that's what he gets as the reward, good for him.
Well, I mean, he's been in Grand Rapids for 2 years. So
that's what I'm saying. But again, there's this elitist attitude like, well, he's not an NHLer. And all of a sudden he's winning games for them against a team that's fighting for their playoff life. And it's like,
well, is the segment that's bitching and moaning, are they in the capital of Canada? Because that's Yeah, that would make sense because he was the guy that beat them. I mean, I don't hear Ottawa.
It wasn't all there, not all from the capital. It went around Canada.
But I don't see. The thing is, I don't hear. I mean, PK Subban, for his rookie year, played like the entire year in the AHL. He played 2 games with the Canadians, and then he played in the playoffs for them, and was a very prominent player. Did PK Subban not earn his way to the NHL by playing in the that's how you earn your way to the NHL, is play in the AHL season, earn your way up, and make an impact. So whoever's saying that about Svechnikov, shut up.
Yeah.
I don't like to hear it because
you're right, because I mean these guys, and then there's the other people that are like, oh, why wasn't he playing all year for them? If he's this, and that's the other thing. It's like that's the other thing you hear a lot of. Like, oh, he should have been there all year because
that's the Red Wing developmental model. That's you earn your way, you over ripen.
That may have to change a little bit because I mean, as good as the Red Wings, the Red Wings have done a great job with that, but they've been able to do that because they've been in the playoffs every year. I mean,
but the example of this act, and if for somebody who is not looking at the overall picture with Toronto, they see Austin Matthews, first pick overall. He comes in the league. He's going to score 40 goals. Mitch Marner, who played a year in junior, comes into the NHL as a rookie, as a 19-year-old. Okay, yeah. Nylander played a year and a half in the AHL. Connor Brown played 2 years in the AHL. Zach Hyman played a year in the AHL. Nikita Zaitsev played 7 years in the KHL. So these guys paid their dues. It's not like they just came all of a sudden and stepped into the NHL and that was it. So you have to, practice your craft and learn at a lower level to come up.
Really should at least most players do have to. I mean, not every player. We've seen some players step in, but most players do have to do that. And
but only players with
Matthews is an interesting case because the fact that he played last year in Switzerland, I don't think has hurt him at all. Like I think that turned out to be a really good move by him because he's come in and
who thought it was a bad move ever?
Well, the people who
it's a professional league.
A lot of people you talk to didn't love it, Russ, because I mean, obviously, you want these star players playing in juniors.
The WHL team that had his draft rights. That's who probably didn't like it, Russ.
Right.
So there is a possibility that the Maple Leafs will clinch a playoff spot tonight.
Yes.
By the way, now they that would be if Tampa were to lose, right, and the Leafs were to beat the Capitals.
Right.
Mike will fly the Leafs flag at half-mast if that happens.
If this is a question from a reader, okay? So I got a reader. His name's Bob Johnson. I don't think the Bob Johnson that we normally.
No, that would be impressive if it was. But go ahead.
From beyond the realm of life. No, This is another Bob Johnson in Calgary, oddly enough, who wants to know, Mike, if the Leafs were to not make the playoffs at this point, would this collapse equal that of the Boston collapse in the 7th game? Because at least on right now, this little bit like what's the Philadelphia Phillies team that lost that blew it at the end?
The
Whiz Kids or whatever they were.
The 64 Phillies, the Gene Mock Phillies. Yeah.
I mean, is this because they are right now? They are really only 2 points away from.
I think it's like one of the websites has them as at 97 or 98%. I mean, it would be.
There's not a whole lot. I mean, there's.
But look at the schedule. I mean, honestly, Washington, Tampa.
I brought that up, and a lot of people yesterday emailed us because we went through the schedule yesterday. A lot of people yesterday emailed us and said, really, they end the season with 5 home games, which is not that big of a deal. I mean, even though one of Buffalo.
5 home games, and one of the home games is a place where they've won 3 times in 22 games. So sure.
Right. No, I know. So now Washington also has something to play for tonight because they can actually, I believe, clinch the division with a win tonight. If I understand this right.
Right. I think they clinched the President's Trophy.
Yeah, and that doesn't mean as much to them as the division.
I know it doesn't, but
I know because teams don't love the President's Trophy. It's funny. That's sometimes considered a bit of a curse. They do want to. Let's look at the other games tonight. So, Philly and New Jersey. There's nothing to that really. The only thing about the Philly New Jersey game that's kind of interesting is the word I just got a little bit ago that Moran and the new kid they just got from Union are playing tonight for the Flyers.
Yeah, Mike Vecchione and Sam Moran are playing tonight.
Yeah,
it'll be a good game for them to break in on. It will.
Yeah, that should be the.
Again, I caution Flyers fans: do not expect the world from Mike Vecchione.
Yeah.
Smith played last night for Buffalo. He's a really good player.
Yeah. And Russ, he looked a little out of place.
Yeah.
But it's understandable. It's his second NHL game. Let the guy.
Bring him in against the Devils at this point. That's not a bad move, I mean,
no, it's a good move.
That's like the Flyers are in a spot where they really don't have. I mean, some fans are like tank. They can't tank at this point. They really are pretty much where they are. Florida's not going to catch them 7 points behind them. So if you look at where as far as draft positions go, they're pretty much where they are. So they can pass Carolina, and I guess they could pass the Islanders. But I think that this is a good call for them. So that's that one game. Then let's see. After that, we've got
Well, the rematch of Detroit and Ottawa, it has playoff implications with Ottawa.
And Detroit's loving this because Detroit has always had Ottawa's number. And that's why I said yesterday I picked up Detroit to win that game. This game tonight, I do have Ottawa winning. And it's really that as close as it is, it's sometimes, the home ice advantage is just the difference. And I think that's what the computer's seeing between those two games. St. Louis and Winnipeg, the Blues are playing a lot better. They would like to get up into that spot, and not have to worry about Nashville possibly taking.
Well, that's the avoid Chicago Bowl. I mean,
right, Chicago, right? And that's yeah. And St. Louis, the spot in both of these best spot to be in both of these conferences, which is exactly what's wrong with this whole thing, is the first wild card spot, right? So that really is the best spot to be in both conferences. So, I mean, not that, Anaheim's no slouch, or you could end up playing Edmonton in the first round. Edmonton could win the Pacific still. So, then after that, we have schedules coming up here. Sorry. So then the Islanders and Nashville. So those are the games right there. This is the Islanders must win game for the Islanders right now. They still have a shot here.
Yeah, no, they don't. Without Tavares, Tavares is done for the season. They don't have a shot. It's over.
A lot of people thought that was an April Fool's joke. That was pretty funny. We never going to talk about that. But Tavares being done for the season was considered an April Fool's joke by a lot of people on the internet.
I know. Look, I mean,
that seems like the worst April Fool's joke ever. First off,
the wording of it was really bad. Just say he's out for the season. You don't have to say regular season as if your playoff hopes are guaranteed like that. It's just, to me, it's just
or week to week. Just say. Right. Don't.
And similarly, the Carolina Hurricanes tonight are fighting for their lives against the Minnesota Wild. The Hurricanes, they big loss the other night. I mean, they played so well down the stretch here. They're sort of everyone's little favorite.
Here's an indication. Carolina's got 84 points. So does Philadelphia. Philadelphia has been officially eliminated. So what does that mean? That means Carolina's got a .01 chance of making the playoffs.
That means Carolina's got one less game played.
Right.
It's over. So now, if Carolina would win this, okay, and Tampa, I mean, they could and Tampa could lose. They could potentially be only 2 points behind Tampa. there would still be 4 points out of the playoff spot. So it's still it's tough.
a real long shot still.
It's a real serious long shot, and but things happen sometimes. So until it's over, it's over. Arizona Dallas is a game that no one should watch. Chicago Colorado is only fun because Colorado likes to play that plays well against Chicago, but we'll see what happens there. Calgary Anaheim is a hugely fun game to watch, though. That's going to be
well. Calgary has not won in Anaheim. I think they said it was 2021.
I'm going to put it on the table that tonight that ends. Okay.
Oh God.
I'm not.
Because you're always a good. When you bet, you always bet smart. You do.
No. This I just have a once in a while you got a hunch.
Mr. Counterintuitive.
It ends tonight. This is the night that it ends because of the significance of this game and because of the fact that the Anaheim Mighty Ducks, even without Bruce Boudreau, are going to get nervous if they lose this game because you've got Edmonton playing LA tonight. Edmonton wins that game, suddenly Edmonton's in first place in the division. If Anaheim were to lose.
The one thing we do have to mention, though, is San Jose. I mean, they've slumped for like the last 3 weeks. And now with Joe Thornton, the injury that happened over the weekend, it's a question mark about that. Because, I mean, I thought, there was a chance that they could get back to the final like they did last year, the way they were playing. But things are really falling apart. And if Thornton is unavailable, I mean, to me, that's a death knell.
Here's the thing, though. I caution everybody now. The Thornton injury looked, kind of bad, but he has time here. Even if he misses a playoff game or two, there's time. I caution everybody, don't go by what a team looks like now when they've locked up the playoffs for a week or so, because there is a level of desire that does go down. It's human nature that we see ratchet right up first game of the playoffs. It's normal.
And the poster child for that is the Minnesota Wild because they've had nothing to play for a month. They had,
We're going to see that, they don't, the Wild are going to be a fun team to watch in the playoffs. I think they're going to be fine. Martin Jones, to me, the playoffs again will come down to goaltending and power plays. So that's why I like San Jose, even without Thornton. You've got Burns on the power play and you've got great goaltending in Martin Jones. This is why you've got a deadly possibility there with that team, and that's why they're going to be fun to watch throughout. Then, so Vancouver, San Jose, Edmonton, LA, Calgary, Anaheim, all these really late games tonight, 10:30 games, are going to have huge implications in that division as to how this ends up. I mean, ideally, I think we all want to see Calgary play Edmonton in the first round.
Oh, it'd be awesome.
But, it doesn't seem super likely. Yeah. But if Edmonton were to lose tonight to LA, which is possible, because LA can always upset somebody, that team is always dangerous. And Calgary to beat Anaheim, which we already determined is going to happen, then you're in a situation where you're gonna see it go. So let's talk Olympics.
Yes.
Time that we have left. All right. So if you weren't following yesterday, the NHL said, if you were living under a rock somewhere, the NHL said they're going to tell their teams we are not going to the Olympics. This, of course, was greeted with great glee among the NHL players, and all responded, in time with some quotes. I'll throw you. Ovechkin says, "Are you still going? Yeah, I didn't change my mind. I'm still going." Mike Babcock, "I've been twice. It's the greatest event you'll ever go to in your life." How about Zetterberg? "I'm not surprised. They'll win something from us, like always." Erik Karlsson, "The Olympic decision is crap." Politely declines comment when he's asked if he'll play in the Olympics. It goes on and on and on and on and on. Braden Holtby, "It's a personal decision for each guy, but I will not leave the Capitals and go to South Korea if there's no deal." Good for Holtby. And then I asked the question today: are players really okay doing this? Doesn't it come off kind of strange? I mean, I'm usually a player guy.
It's a public relations move. This is what it is. In their hearts, they'd like to play. Heck, how many times did you want to play ice hockey when you had to report to work? You did, right? So if you walked into your boss and said, "Hey, I'm going to go play pickup hockey for the next couple weeks because there's a tournament. I really want to play in it. I'll be back in like 2 weeks, okay?" And what would your boss say?
No. You're not allowed to do that, but it's even weirder than that. It's like if I said to HockeyBuzz, who supports my family and everything like that, if I said I went to HockeyBuzz and I said, "You know what? I'm going to next year, right at the trade deadline, I'm going to go write for TSN for free, and I'll be back after that. Because it'd be fun to write for TSN, and I'll go do it. And I mean, that would be absurd. Like, the whole concept of you can't, like, whoever, I mean, these players are making millions of dollars, and I get the fact that a lot of them feel as if, and I think this is definitely a case with Ovechkin, that the national programs in Russia is a good reason why he's got as good as he got, and is why he's there now.
Right.
And there is a loyalty to that.
Sure.
Ovechkin is not. It's not like Ovechkin has never shown up and worn the Russian uniform. Okay, we've all seen him play for Russia,
right?
A dozen times now. So it's a completely absurd. And these players, it's just and what these players aren't thinking.
They can go. They'll just have to pay. They'll be suspended. They'll pay a fine. They'll do whatever. If they really want to go, they can go. They can pay their own insurance. They can do those things.
Yeah, but this is the thing. This is the thing, Russ. If the NHL says you're not allowed to go, okay. Now there's already precedent for this on a smaller scale with players who say I'm not going to the All-Star game, and they suspend them for a couple games, not just one, a couple, and it's after the All-Star game. I'm telling you right now, the NHL, if they don't, now that they're not going to the Olympics, although there are some people out there who think this is a bluff. I mean, Ovechkin apparently said in the press scrum in Toronto that he thinks that the NHL is bluffing, and there are some indications.
It's not a bluff.
Right. I don't think it's a bluff at all. I think this is a symptom of the IOC being one of the biggest money-grubbing organizations in the history of man, and they're not going to give up what the NHL is looking for. The NHL is saying, okay, well, you're not going to use our players for free for 2.5 weeks. So there's an impasse, and I don't think the NHL is backing down, and I don't think the corrupt IOC is breaking down. So if you're going to have Alex Ovechkin, or if you're going to have Evgeny Kuznetsov, who apparently said the same thing that Ovechkin did, and saying he's going to go, okay, well, how about Ted Leonsis? You're going to be fined $500,000, and your players are suspended for the rest of the regular season and the playoffs. If that happens, he's not going to let them go.
No, probably not. I did some research too, Mike, because we were talking about the NBA, and it's interesting because the NBA has no problem because it happens during the summer, but it doesn't close the league down. But I did find an article in 2012 in the New York Times where David Stern, who was the NBA commissioner then, even playing during the summer, was reevaluating everything to see if it was worth it for the league financially and otherwise, because he was thinking of having, wait for it, a World Cup of basketball. and so, again, the NBA takes no heat for this because it was off season. Nothing ever affected the sport. And the NHL is getting sunk here by the fans, and it's wrong.
Here's the thing. The NHL, of all the one thing that it has over baseball, football, and basketball is, if you're going to go to the 4 major sports in America, is the fact that the NHL has more of a history in international play, right? They're way more than basketball, way more than baseball, way more than football. Obviously, football, but this is so it's inherent to the game. I mean, the only thing that has more of a history in the world would be soccer. Right. So, so basically hockey and soccer are the 2 sports that are played at major levels with people getting paid millions of dollars. And in soccer, the precedent there is kind of bizarre because the precedent in soccer is the players do leave their teams to play in the middle of the season for their countries. It does happen all the time. And it's totally, so I know some of the, and I think when you're looking at Ovechkin, you got to understand that the 2 major sports in Russia with him growing up were hockey and soccer. Soccer is enormous, and there's 2 teams in Moscow. It's an enormous thing. So he's seen his players that he follows, on soccer teams or whatever, go and leave their teams to play for their country as if it's some kind of calling that you have to do. That when you're called to do it, you do it. And soccer does this all the time.
How about this for a calling act? He could basically say to the NHL, I'm retiring. He can go play for Russia. He could play in the KHL the rest of his career if he wants. Any of these players can do that. Henrik Lundqvist, if you want to go play, he can go play. He can retire from the Rangers. He can walk away from that. He can go play in Sweden for the rest of his career. They have a choice. The league didn't take the choice away from them. The league let them play all these years. Now the league has decided, because of the way the world is, economics and everything else, the owner's risk of injury, which is a real one because it's in season, hey, it's not viable. The players still have options. And the thing is, we talked about this. This was going to be not political, but basically a public relations deal, and everybody was waiting for the day that they could stomp on the NHL. Now, I'm going, or maybe going, to this conference tomorrow in Manhattan, and I told you I thought they'd come to a decision before this because they're talking about ticket sales at Pyeongchang for the Winter Olympics.
Right.
Now, the NHL did the smart thing because they probably would have gotten killed in this conference too. Now they're going to have to say, hey, we're selling hockey tickets. They don't even know who's going to be playing hockey. Like, they don't even know. They wouldn't even be able to tell you what kind of teams are going to be fielded. Nobody has any idea. But the idea is the league did what they had to do. Players can do what they have to do. My father always said, like, when you have a job, hey, you can walk away from that job. You could just quit. But you got to have something else to back it up. And so for all the talk of the KHL, hey, players will come back and play over here. Let's see how many of them actually do it.
Well, and this is the thing, and this is one example. Leo Komarov came over to play for the Leafs, played a few years in the KHL. He came to play in the Leafs with the Leafs in 2013. He went back to play in the KHL because he wasn't getting as much playing time with Toronto. He was a fourth-line guy. He was going to be a top 6 guy in the KHL, and he needed that type of exposure to get on the Finnish Olympic team in 2014, which he did. The next year after the Olympics, he came back to Toronto. Now, there are players, and there's some indications right now from the KHL, from some managers of some KHL teams that they're going to try to pilfer some players who are RFAs or UFAs. I mean, I can think of Radulov being in Montreal, who's a UFA and unsigned right now. There's some speculation about Nikita Zaitsev, who was rumored to be signing a 7-year contract with Toronto. It hasn't been signed yet, so until he does sign, he played 7 years in the KHL. I would be a little worried until he signs on the dotted line whether he would go back or not. There's going to be some attempts from KHL teams to get these players to come back to Russia, or players who might have come over to North America. I know that the one guy we were talking about, Russ, Kachev, the guy from Akbars Kazan, yes. He was supposedly very interested in signing with an NHL team, but the one factor was what was going to happen with the Olympics, because if the NHL Russian players didn't go to the Olympics, he might have a chance.
Stay over there then. I mean,
for another year. But the one thing here is the NHLPA, and some of these players are moaning about what the decision that's made. Well, okay, guys, you're not going to get something for free. If you want to go, if it's that important to you, and this is what's going to happen in the next CBA, when the statement came out from the Players Association, I said this was the first salvo of the next CBA negotiation, because the owners now have a chip. They have going to the Olympics, and if the NHLPA wants to go so badly to the Olympics, then I'll tell you right now, you're going to have to give up something to go.
Yeah, I'll give this the best example. TJ Oshie. Nobody gained more popularity from the Olympics than TJ Oshie. He got, at least 1 or 2 endorsements. Do you think that money is more than what he is making in his NHL career? No.
He probably got paid for what he makes like maybe in 3 games.
Right.
Probably got it for that Verizon commercial.
Right.
So completely no. I mean, it's
and that's why this whole thing is a farcical conversation.
The Olympics are about the fact that the Olympics are awesome. Okay. At the end of the day, what Babcock said, is the closest thing to the reality of the situation, is that this is just an incredible event. Like, I covered it in Vancouver, and I can tell you it was.
But Mike Babcock also knows he ain't going.
Yeah.
Right. He knows he's not. Right. But it was the greatest experience of my life. I loved it. If I was beyond, my children being born and my wife, marrying my wife, this covering the Olympics was phenomenal. Right. And it really was just, and as far as anything I've done in hockey, it was the highlight of my career. Because it is that awe-inspiring, and it's something that goes back to your presence as a child, and watching the Olympics growing up and all those things that connect to it. But we're looking at a group of players here who have all done that. Okay, now I'm not saying that's like I didn't go to Sochi. I wanted to go to Sochi, but I didn't go to. I went to Vancouver, and sure, I wanted to go to Sochi to cover it again. But you know what? Financially, I couldn't leave Hockey Buzz. I couldn't do it. I couldn't make it work. So yeah, I stayed home and did my job. I had credentials. I could have gone to Sochi, but I didn't. I could have gone to South Korea, but I was not going to. These things are they're expensive. You have to make decisions here based on what your job is, right? And that's all that's happening here. And it's not. And a lot of these younger players, who I know Eichel's upset about it. I've talked to some other players too. They're going to have their chance. It's not like the Olympics. It's not like the NHL is never going to go back to the Olympics. And I don't buy any of the IHF saying if you don't go to South Korea, you can't go to China. That's just BS. It's not the case. The IHF wants them in there badly. So the Eichels and Matthews of the world, they'll get their chance to play in the Olympics.
Right, but
nothing to do with the World Cup of Hockey. The only thing I can say with the World Cup of Hockey that might have something to do with is the fact that I could see there's a scenario in my head that keeps playing out. I mentioned it before, and this is purely just like me connecting dots down the line, that this will affect the Russians somehow playing in the World Cup of Hockey. Because I can see how the Russians players could go. Some of the Russian players go play in the Olympics.
It does. I mean, we've lived without that before.
Be mad about Russia letting them do that, and at the end of the day, will Russia be invited to the next World Cup of Hockey? Does it matter? I don't know. I'm just saying that I can see that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I know that there are certain players, like Crosby has not said anything about it, but this essentially ends Sidney Crosby's Olympic career probably because by the time 2022 and
he can accomplish something in the Olympics,
and he can wear his gold medal out to dinner. It doesn't matter.
Right, but I'm just saying if he wants another one, he's 34 years old. It's gonna be pretty tough. But all I'm saying here is this is a chip that and honestly,
that pisses me off, Mike, because you're right, but this part is what pisses me off the most about this entire situation is that this is tied to the CBA at all. Like that this.
I agree, but then again, this is a business, and I go back to where your boss let you go.
Decision really is not. This is not the CBA. This is like the jerk move that you make, like telling your wife, we can get that card, but I'm going to get the TV, the bigger TV.
That's fine, but it's still a negotiation.
It's not tied to the CBA directly. You're right.
No,
this is about money, and that's the problem. Right. The 30 owners don't see any benefit of going to the Olympics in South Korea, where games will start at 7:00 in the morning, where they're taking all the risk. Where money coming from the IIHF that would normally go for hockey development is going to pay insurance and travel costs when the super cheap IOC should be fitting the bill. That's the whole point. They're not getting
dangerous. South Korea is. I mean, this is like a really dangerous place for millionaires to take their families. And hockey players love to bring their whole families to the Olympics, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is a dangerous place. Like, there's no way on a bet if I'm a hockey player, I'm taking my family over to South Korea because it's just ridiculous.
Let's bet on the mental stability of Kim Jong-un, and no, thank you.
Right.
Here's what I think. At the end of the day, I think like 2 or 3 players will end up going, and a lot of fringe players that are unsigned, like Mike said earlier to me, some RFAs that are pending, some UFAs, they'll go. But at the end of the day, most of these players who complain today, they'll be playing in the NHL.
Oh, yeah.
Including Alex Ovechkin.
I think Ovechkin's not going. I don't think for a second he's going.
Because I say it right now.
He can't say it, and Leonsis can't say anything. Leonsis is being the good guy here because he and Ovechkin are buddies, and he's that kind of owner that he's going to do the buddy. But he doesn't want him to go either. I mean, this is just.
It's curious. We heard about Kuznetsov and we heard Ovechkin, and then we hear the exact opposite from Holtby. But that's not exactly a bold statement by Holtby because Hockey Canada and USA Hockey are not going to ask players to leave the NHL. That's the whole point. So, So unless they do it of their own volition, they're not going.
Well, here, let's just bring it to another perspective because it's easy right now for the fans to get behind the players. That's fine. Hey, Alex, you should go. Well, what if, like, all of a sudden I bought some tickets for my family, and it's during that 2-week period, and I'm going to go see a Caps game, and it's one of 2 games I'm going to see this year, and they're both during that period. Alex Ovechkin is not playing. Am I not going to be upset because I spent like $200-300 on tickets? Of course I am. Yeah. So it's really easy to say, hey, you should go until it affects you, and it will affect people, season ticket holders.
Oh, yeah.
Season ticket holders, how do you tell them, hey, your best player is not going to be there for 2 weeks, but don't worry, we're going to charge you the same.
And just think of it this way. Just think of it this way. The Russians will probably be the odds-on favorite to win the gold because they'll have Datsuk and Kovalchuk playing NHL, and Team Canada will have Brandon Kozin. And I'm not saying anything bad about Brandon Kozin, but he's a fringe NHL guy who's playing in the KHL right now. There'll be players like that. It's going to basically be the Spengler Cup.
Okay, but here's the thing. So something I didn't even know about. We all talk about 1980. PBS did a little documentary on a rowing team, and they're called the Boys of 36. And they literally were a rowing team from Washington State University. They went into the Olympics, and they beat everybody. They beat all of these professional teams that were together for 10 years, teams that were basically getting paid by the government to perform. And you know what? It could still happen. I know everybody says, oh, it's impossible. It can't happen. You know what? It still could happen.
And please, please, please stop with this crap about this isn't over. Because I'm sorry, I think it is. If you want to tell stories about, well, there's a chance if the IOC the IOC is not going to back down. And honestly, if Gary Bettman backs down and doesn't get anything for the owners, they should fire him. Because the negotiation, I mean, you're standing up for a principle. You're standing up to get something from the IOC. And if all of a sudden you reverse course and say, oh, we're going to go, and you get nothing, then you've abrogated your responsibility as commissioner of the NHL. So unless the IOC backs down, they're not going.
Okay, now let's take into the IOC for a minute. We never get to see their tax return, right? We never get to see how much money they're making from this, right? I mean, everybody wants to kill the NHL. Everybody wants to, pick a side. Well, these guys are making money off of this, and the players don't even make a dime. Right. Now, the players are still willing to do it, but the idea that the owners wanting money is fair because the governing body is making money on this event.
Yes, but I'd say that it feels a little bit like.
What else do you do for free, Act, that you risk your?
Oh, no, I know. That's why I'm completely agree with you. But the IOC, I think a lot of the money that comes in is going out to support all the other sports. That like a lot of things. There's a lot of aspects to it. It's kind of like it's the whole paid for college, pay players to play in college concept. Like that's should you pay players to play in college because this is supposed to be an amateur event, right? And the money that is made is. I think goes to support all the other sports that really don't, like we're talking about, like women's hockey, like that's where money should be going to. Like we talk, that's so in a way, I feel happy that money wasn't wasted on these millionaire hockey players because it's like that they really need. I'd rather have the women get something out of it than have the NHLers go to the Olympics again.
And I don't see like an under 20 tournament happening because. Okay, the World Juniors in Buffalo in December and January. Do you think that the organizers of the of that and the IIHF will sign off on having a tournament in Buffalo in December and January, and then a month and a half later having basically the same tournament in South Korea?
I think that would be kind of cool, honestly. Like I think that would be kind of fun. Like that's like a that makes the World Juniors a preview of the Olympics. I think that would be kind of fun.
Yeah, a preview, but who wants to pay to go to a preview? That's the thing.
Oh, no, I just got an interesting text. Just like they have Apple stores that are duplicated in the Orient, in North Korea, there's another Hockey Buzz. They have an opening. You can go there and you could be the number one guy. You could run everything the same way here, and you could do it there. Are you willing to do it? They're not going to pay you though.
Yeah, sure. That sounds perfect.
Yeah.
Okay. My kids don't need food or college. That's fine. Definitely.
It's HockeyBuzz.nk, I think.
Yeah, that would be what it is. I'm sure we'll talk more about this, but this is. I think that this is worth changing the subject a little bit here. This plane flew above the for all we say that the Panthers don't have fans. Come on, give it up for this one. Over the Florida arena yesterday, this guy flies his plane with a banner hanging. "Romo must go. Call him a cab." Great, perfect. I don't know. Really nicely.
So are we gonna trace the credit card back to Dale Talon?
Right. But this did.
Hey, here's the thing. I've been critical of Tom Rowe.
Yeah.
It's not all his fault.
No. Yeah, I know. Yeah, I agree with that. But I just think that he is not coming back. I've talked to him. He's not coming back anyway. So, but this is it is an interesting situation because the Panthers, had they kept Gallant, a lot of people wonder, because basically once they got
they're going to. And based on what Elliot Friedman reported, the thought that I had that the Islanders might have been looking at Talon and Gallant now won't even be able to happen because Florida doesn't want to give up Dale Talon at all to anybody.
I talked to Florida, and that never the conversation never even happened with the Islanders.
No, it never happened. But But don't tell me the Islanders didn't think
Of
about
course, and they, but there's no way they were ever giving up Talon.
Yeah.
Because because I think what has happened this year has made them, if anything, Talon's got some negotiating power right now with them. I think to actually.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah,
I think he does.
It's bigger than a cleanup on aisle 5 when it comes to what's going on in Sunrise right now. I mean, you've got a bunch of contracts that you signed long term. Some of them I think were ill advised. You've got the goaltending situation that's Luongo is what.
That's the one that's going to hurt him the most because the health of Roberto Luongo and not having the right backup is really what's going to hurt him because. Hey, I don't want to be the one that kills Reimer. I like the guy too. He's a very likable guy. But we've all seen why he's not a real number one or even a number one for long stretches. And
Could they buy out Luongo?
They could.
They could.
I was hearing rumors the other day about Mason possibly ending up in Florida. That's why I asked this question.
Actually, I don't know. Could they? When did Luongo sign that deal? I don't know.
It was signed before the CBA. It still has I believe it still has the cap recapture.
Yeah.
Okay. It was a long-term deal. Now he has 5 more years.
Yeah, they're not doing it.
Yeah. He would have to retire, and that's the thing. And And if I was him, why would I? Now they could get away with him going on injury, like going to roll, but the Florida version.
He won't do that. Roberto Luongo will not do that.
Well, I don't know, Russ. I mean, there are a lot of nice islands in the key.
He's not like that. I'm telling you right now.
Yeah.
Because he knows he has game left, he will not do that.
Bro, oh no, I know, but the thing is,
but they're in a tough spot. Like this is the toughest spot you could be in now because you've got that logjam at goalie. You're not going to put Adam Wilcox ahead of the other 3 or Rito Berra ahead of the other 2 rather, and this could affect what they perceived a few years ago as their Stanley Cup run. Yes,
but I mean the thing is though, they're not going to bail on Reimer as the pseudo number 1 after 1 season. So unless he's had, I mean. The concussion that he had in Toronto, I believe, was the 4th that he's had in his career. So, I mean, unless there's a concussion aspect to him not being able to play, which I wouldn't think so, and Luongo is limited. It's going to be a 1A, 1B scenario like it is this year, and they're just going to have to play better in front of them to win.
Right. We just got an email from somebody about the Olympic thing, and I wanted to touch base on it.
Okay.
You can always email Eklund at HockeyBuzz.com and put podcast question or something like that in the title. This comes from Chris, who says if the Olympics want the NHL players, why not move the Olympic hockey to the Summer Olympics? The games are played inside.
Well, Mike and I talked about that, and here's the thing: it's like an oxymoron. Now, granted, basketball is not a summer sport either, but it's more, I guess, transferable because the court it could be played indoors, outdoors. Like you could do a lot. It's hard with hockey.
It's just it by definition is ice hockey, so it's like it would be really strange for it to. And the other thing about it is the Olympics love the fact that they have, and Kevin's brought this up before because he's covered every Olympics. The Olympics love the fact that they have a team sport in the Winter Olympics, which is rare. Like most of the team sports they have are in the Summer Olympics. I don't know if there's any other team sports in the Winter Olympics. Are there? I'm trying to think of what.
Luge.
The luge, I think you would consider a team sport.
Yeah, but this is like the full out teams. That's where
bobsled.
Yeah, but like 20, 25 player teams. We're talking about.
Not that big. I mean, no,
not that big.
So I think that is, and I also don't want to rip on the on South Korea too much. I know we have some
their fault at all.
I'm not ripping on South Korea at all.
And we actually have a really good a guy who watches the HockeyBuzzcast every day in South Korea, who's
no. This is not on them. It's not their fault. They're a time zone disaster for this country. That's not their fault, but that's the reality of television that we've been talking about for a year.
Okay, I'm the exception to the rule. I'm a sports fanatic. When the World Cup was played in South Korea, the World Cup of soccer was played in South Korea. The games were starting at 4 a.m. And I got up for some of them, even though I'm not the biggest soccer fan in the world. When the games were, I keep saying this, when the games were in Nagano in '98, that game, the famous Canada-Czech game that Dominik Hasek stoned Team Canada, that was at 1:30 or 2 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, how many? I don't even know if I watched it. I think I did, but I don't know.
I did. I mean, I watched the watch the U.S. team win the World Juniors over in Russia live.
I know. I remember me waking up at 2 and 3 in the morning at different times in my life to watch sports. So I think I did actually watch that game. But most people are not doing that. We're maniacs.
Yeah, we also live in a different kind of world now than we did back then too.
And nobody's gonna watch a tape delay. They're gonna, if they're on.
Now, if there's a 4 o'clock in the morning game, I get up at 8 o'clock in the morning. I tape it. I get up and I don't put it on my computer. I just watch it.
You don't put it on your computer. You don't put it on your phone. You don't listen to your phone messages. You don't watch the crawl on any other channel. Like, it's gonna be hard.
Yeah. The TJ Oshie shootout game. The funny story behind that is that that's how I watched that with my family. It was like a Sunday morning or something like that, and we all got up at 8 in the morning, and we were like, it had already happened. We watched it, and we watched the entire game. It was a really exciting game, if you remember, and back and forth, and then we get to the overtimes and the shootouts, and then because of the DVR setup, Oshie's about to shoot, and the DVR stops. So I put extra time on there and everything, but somehow or another that game just went really long, and then it was a race to the computer. What the hell happened? To see if
I'm going to warn people. I think even Siri would betray you. I think even if you had a wake-up call, Siri would say, it's 6 a.m. and by the way, the U.S. lost.
Right. Siri, don't show me any emotion. I remember that as a kid. Like I just couldn't even see my mom. Don't show me any emotion. I don't want to know anything about it.
Right.
I will know from just looking at you what happened in this game. I can't see you at all.
Right.
Like we all remember doing that.
Yeah.
But all right, let's get into this into the draft lottery simulator for today. All right.
And the IOC cannot win.
No, here we go. And there is the New Jersey Devils.
Wow.
Followed by the Philadelphia Flyers. And
that's the second time in like 3 shows or 4 shows that the Devils have won.
Yeah, the Devils have won this a couple times now. The Avalanche, who should win this, definitely have only won it once. The Flyers, this is the 3rd time they've been in the top 3.
Yeah.
This is that it would be interesting to see the Devils get this pick. The Devils, I don't know if the Devils had a first overall pick. Yes, they have, right?
Yeah, they definitely have.
Yeah, way back when, I'm sure they did.
No, I don't think so. No.
I was trying to think. I mean, they were pretty bad early in their early.
They were pretty bad, but they didn't. I don't think they had first overall picks. Colorado. What's that?
They definitely had a second. I'm pretty sure they've had a second.
Kirk Muller.
Yeah.
Kirk Muller. Yeah, there you go. He was second.
He was second overall to Mario.
Right. Of course.
Let's see. Devils draft history.
Shanahan.
So yeah, I don't know.
Shanahan was second to Pierre Turgeon.
Yeah, I think they've only had second. They haven't had a first.
There you go.
Yeah. Adam Larson was 4th.
I'm just first overall pick when you think about it.
I'm sorry.
There are a lot of teams that have never had a first overall pick when you think about it. Here's a great pick for the Devils. 1986, Neil Brady. I don't know. Was he part of the Brady bunch? I don't know. He was a second cousin, I think.
Scott Niedermayer was 3rd overall in 90.
Yeah, it's interesting. I guess when I thought of Muller and the others, I thought one of them was a number 1, but nobody was a number 1.
Nope.
Yeah, so there you go. All right, guys. We'll be back again tomorrow. Enjoy the games tonight. A lot of games tonight. I think it's 11 or 12 games tonight. So a lot.
I do have breaking Flyers news if you want it.
Okay.
German Rupstov had his season-ending surgery for Shikoudami. So I'm just letting you know.
Wow. Yeah, they have really high hopes for him next year. So that's going to be somebody for the Flyers to look forward to. I think he may giving him a chance to make the team next year.
No, depending on
they definitely could do that and then put him in the AHL if they want, but I don't know what kind of surgery, so we'll have to see.
Yeah, he seems to be a really good player.
No, he's a really good player.
Yeah. Remember, without the buzz, it is just hockey. We will talk to you tomorrow.